guys. Find a spot just to lean against the wall if you can't get comfortable. My name is Albert Garcia. I'm the chairman of the Wynwood BID. I'd like to welcome everybody today. There's some new faces in the room as well, so thank you for coming out to our public meetings. We're going to start off with the roll call of directors, so we'll start off here to the left. Albert Garcia.
Irving Werner. David Charette.
And then we have our Wynwood BID staff, starting off with our executive director.
Manny Gonzalez.
Alexander Sanchez. Chris Hoffman.
Terrific. All right. So in your packets, board members, we have the minutes from our last meeting on January 15th. Please take a moment to review the minutes.
Board members, while you review this, some review on some action items. We had a visit to the real-time crime center on January 16th at the Miami PD headquarters to check out the donated cameras that we had given to the police department last year. We also had the extension for Super Bowl that was also approved, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Keon Hardeman for sponsoring that item on our behalf. We also had, let me see what else we, and the rest of the items are just generic updates. We have still the pending question to legal regarding the emails and regarding the assessments that we're going to work with Miami-Dade County. There's reference to the WDRC election. Within your packets, you'll find the submittals that we received, and then there was no motion other than the approval of the minutes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Glenn, second? Second. Irving. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes have been passed. All right. Normally on our agenda, thank you, we go into the executive director report, but we do have a few items to get to before that today, so we are going to shuffle around the order of the agenda, if that's okay with the board members. Before we get into our business of the day, we want to recognize, first an individual, but really a family that is synonymous with the Wynwood that we have all grown to love and admire today, both here in this room and across really the world, and that is Goldman Properties. We've invited Jessica Goldman, the CEO of the company, to join us this morning. For those of you that don't know, the Wynwood Walls, the iconic Wynwood Walls, which now welcomes over 3 million annual visitors, recently celebrated a milestone, their 10th year anniversary at the end of last year. I think everybody here, of course, shares a sense of pride for having that place, that very special place here in Wynwood. And it would be, I think, a huge oversight of this community not to acknowledge the important contributions, the many contributions that Jessica and her family have had, starting with her father, Tony Goldman, her brother, her mother, and even this gentleman here seated to my right, Marlo, who's been a long champion of this community with Goldman Properties. So before I invite Jessica to come up, I really want to kind of go around this boardroom and kind of put my fellow board members on the spot. This is not rehearsed, so I don't know what's going to come out, here, but really I think it's that candid opportunity to really say thank you to Jessica, to her family, to her team. We had a stupendous year last year. We had a record number of people coming to this community for Art Week, and of course the Super Bowl, which is just a few weeks behind us, was an opportunity not only to celebrate football, but to really elevate Wynwood throughout South Florida. And Goldman Properties did a phenomenal job, not just curating art at the walls that they do every year, but they also curated the tickets, the program, buildings along Biscayne Bay. I mean, it really was a moment for Wynwood to just, transmit its beauty beyond its borders here in our 50-block neighborhood. So I want to go around and just, anything that comes to mind about maybe your first experience going into the walls, what you think about the walls. It's really a moment to just give a quick, brief tribute. Time is obviously not on our side here because we have a lot of things to do today, but just some quick thoughts before we hand this off to to Jessica. I'm going to start with David on the other end of the table here.
Hi, good morning. I know that we moved our practice here from Fort Lauderdale just because I was blown away by the Wynwood walls and thought that it was a good opportunity to be adjacent to also the design district. I was really impressed with the expansion of the Wynwood walls itself, and it's just continued to be a wonderful neighborhood that we practice in, and also we know our clients love coming here, so it makes it a really enjoyable experience also for our staff. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, my first experience with the Golden family was with Joey. Wish he would come more often. Character, nice guy. Kind of scared me at the beginning when he said, "Want to buy your properties?" I thought he was a Jewish mafia. I didn't know what to think. But I really, loved the Golden family. With Marlo, Victor Sanchez, it made me a better property owner and a small-time little developer. Brought my standards up. Let me know how important it is to partner and to be part of this whole scene. So thank you very much.
Man.
Well, Jessica and Marlo and the Goldman team, coming from, I've been at Grovite High School. I've always stayed on that part of town. Really didn't come to Wynwood. I was a little older, but when I did have the opportunity and the blessing to come over to work for this organization, and I actually got to see the Wynwood walls, that's what made me kind of understand the nexus of, that's the orbit, of the area. And you can see how, everything in there kind of aligns, has made the whole neighborhood align, and taken that flavor of public art and expression. And I think that it's the only place of its kind in Miami. I think it's the driving force of this area and what, gives stimulation to all the businesses. So thank you for doing this for the neighborhood, because I know that could easily be, could have been a building. Could have been a beautiful building with beautiful, and they have left it open for the neighborhood and the community and the surrounding areas to benefit free of charge. So thank you for what you've done, and congratulations.
I want to thank Jessica and Marlo for doing something great and creative here in Miami and in our neighborhood. We could have opened our businesses anywhere in Miami or Florida for that matter, but we felt such a place of welcoming and neighborhood and community here because of the Wynwood walls and what really grew from there. This is a great addition to the neighborhood. Multiple social openings downstairs is another great addition to the neighborhood. And I can speak personally that what you've done has really helped our businesses grow and thrive throughout the years. So thank you for that.
I think it's a unique place, not only in Miami, but anywhere in the world. I've never seen a place like that. Every day I tour with people, with friends, with investors, and they're impressed to see this type of art in the middle of the street. I think it's unique. It's magic, and I think that without that, there wouldn't be anything new.
I had the opportunity of meeting your father many, many years ago at one of the meetings. And in my early encounters with him, he said to me, Wynwood is going to be something amazing like you've never seen before. And I think Wynwood as a whole is the personification of your father's legacy. And it's really something that without him and his vision, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you.
So, I have known Jessica since she's
12 years old.
And that's a blessing for me and my family. And I have watched Jessica as she grew into the company and really has done an exceptional job with the curation. We're talking here about the Wynwood walls, which is the most exceptional. It's the centerpiece of this neighborhood, and we are all so very, very proud of it. I can tell you that the amount of work that goes into the curation process, the galleries that we now have on site, and the entire Goldman Global Arts arm of our company is really quite incredible, one of a kind, and world class. And it all comes, Jessica, because you bring style and class to the neighborhood and to your body of work. And I truly appreciate all that you do. I remember the Wynwood walls when it was dirt. And we do many improvements to the Wynwood walls. Every year it's a process for Goldman Properties and for Goldman Global Arts. And every, before, we all know that Art Basel is kind of that annual moment, but so much work goes into what goes through Jessica's mind to curate meeting of the artists, local artists, artists around the world, to be able to always improve and add something different every year. And I truly appreciate that, because we can all see it in the people that come here, being one of the most Instagrammable sites in the world. It is truly exceptional, and thank you.
Can I say something?
Come on up, of course.
I really had no idea, honestly, that I was walking into a morning of gratitude, and I'm so deeply touched, really, by all of you. The Wynwood Walls is something that I'm deeply passionate about. My father was deeply passionate about, and I know you all have become advocates and passionate about what it means to this community, and it shows that anything is possible. Because I remember very vividly in 2005, my father standing on Northwest 2nd Avenue. There wasn't a person, a car, nothing. And he stood there right in front of where the entrance to the Wynwood Walls is, and he said, this is going to be the center for the creative class. That's what this neighborhood is going to be. And it's as relevant today as it will be in 10 years from now, in 20 years from now. And it is, I am the proudest advocate of Wynwood, truly the proudest advocate. I talk about all of the incredible things that we do in this community all over the world, to anybody that will listen. And I think that it's our responsibility. I mean, what an incredible thing that the BID meetings have grown to, to really from nothing to a neighborhood association, into a BID, and now into this. I mean, this is a testament to all of you for contributing your time and your leadership, for all of you for caring enough to really do what's right for our community. And it's critical that we pay attention, that we not take anything for granted, that we work tirelessly to keep our neighborhood here, up here at all times, so that we are an example for every single person that comes from around the world, or other governments that are looking at our neighborhood as an example of what they want and what they can do. That's our responsibility. Every single one of us in this room, people that are not in this room, and so it's and I am so grateful that you recognize the Wynwood Walls and that you recognize the Goldman family and Goldman Properties, because people like Victor, people like Marlo, who's been a part of my life my entire life. And I know my dad is watching from above. I know he is exceedingly proud of all of us. And we just have to keep working and pushing ourselves to do, whether it's your product, make it the best product. Make the service the best service. Be kind, show gratitude, and do whatever you can to be as creative as you humanly can, because it is possible. And I'm just really thankful for this. This will be I'll put it right next to my desk. And thank you.
We couldn't get a trophy large enough to hold all the words we obviously want to convey. But of course, Jessica, on behalf of the Wynwood BID Board of Directors, are more than 150 commercial property owners and 400 business owners that call this place their home. We thank you for everything, congratulate you on 10 years of excellence at the Wynwood Walls, and an appreciation for outstanding and dedicated service to our community. On behalf of the BID, Congratulations.
Thank you. Back to business. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
All right, so we're going to get started. We are expecting Mayor Francis Suarez to join us in a few moments. So when he walks in, we may pause where we are on the agenda to start addressing some concerns that he's been gracious enough to come today to hear, to listen, and more importantly, hopefully to address. So with that being stated, I just want to defer over to Manny to give the Executive Director report.
Just a brief report, considering the time constraints. Just for your records, you're going to find this was the music extension request that we had initiated last year. This is for Music Week, for alcohol sales, noise extension to run until 5 a.m. This was going to be sponsored again by our Commissioner, Commissioner Hardiman. At the meeting though, the Wynwood BID reached out to the Commissioner and respectfully asked if this item could be tabled, at least for the moment. Within your package, you'll see in the back, it's something that we've been monitoring with the police department and with other agencies, which is the Miami Beach, what they're going to do. They're thinking about cutting their times till 3 a.m. So I believe that on the 26th, they're going to have their final second reading on this item. If they do move to 3 a.m., we will need to have that discussion if we move forward or if we don't, because there's going to be, even with the commander and the chiefs, bringing additional police to the area, there may not be enough because of the overflow, so that's just something that we're monitoring right now.
Go ahead and finish your report.
Okay. Second item that you're going to find, this is just a summary that we've received. There's going to be 2 public records requests. Standard, we always share this with the board. First one that we got was on Monday, January 27th. It was regarding noise complaints, special events permitting, and TUPs. There's lists of emails. This is why we always say that it's very important to watch when you put an email and all this other stuff, because they're like boomerangs. They will come back. So this is just for your records. We also have a second one that we got. This was regarding WDRC agenda that someone asked. We went through the proper protocol and they were answered. And then we had a third public records request that's not included here that was also received in regards to some text messages. So just for your records, that's what they have. All the emails and the information have been given timely, in a timely manner. So that's an update there. MPA yearly totals. So 2019, if you notice, we had 1.5 million transactions. We also had the machine transactions of 26,000. Pay by phone and pay on foot. So we're still haven't plateaued. We got an increase of 131,000 total visitors versus the year before. The jump in 2018, that substantial 411K, that was awesome. But just so you know, we have 131. We have not plateaued. We're still going on an upward trend.
So that's close to over 1.6 million parking transactions in 2019. Just
Yes, sir.
Put it into perspective. Okay.
And then you're also going to have a summary of the bid board meeting dates for 2020 for your reference. This is just following the same cadence. Just to the board, if anyone has any issues, you can feel free to email me. I'll send out the Outlook invites for the remainder of the year, if that's fine with everyone. Other than that, there's some other items and updates in finance and capital that we'll bring up at that time.
Thank you for joining us today. So Before we begin, I do want to thank him for coming out today as well. I also want to acknowledge several other members of the city staff and administration that are also here today, starting with Francisco Garcia, the director of the City Maybe Planning Department, who's here, as well as Marta Martinez Aleman from County Commissioner and Chairwoman Audrey Edmondson's office. She's a regular, of course, for those of you that come to our meetings from time to time. And there are also, of course, folks here from the City of Miami Police Department, Code Enforcement, Net Office. David Snow is also here from the Planning Department, as are liaisons from our City Commissioner, Keon Hardiman's office, the chairman of the City Commission. If I missed anybody, I apologize. I can't see everybody from where I'm seated, but thank you all for coming today. Before we open the floor to everybody, there have been a lot of reports as of late with concerns surrounding the direction of the neighborhood, the quality of life. And I've also posed questions that some of us up here have been discussing, I'm sure, privately and even in forums such as these, which is, where are we headed? What type of neighborhood do we want to be? How do we identify ourselves at the present? Where have we come from? And are we on the right track? And this organization was created in 2013 with the basic premise that a community of property owners and business owners wanted to really be in control of their destiny, wanted to chart a course, have a common vision, and drive in that direction. We agreed to create a special taxing district. That's what this board, amongst other things, is the custodian of. We are elected representatives who represent this community. And in the last 7 years, we've had a lot of challenges and a lot of successes. But common behind all of this is a very long-term outlook as well as an immediate response to challenges as they may arise. And I believe that we are at one of those moments now, a challenging moment. In 2015, working alongside Francisco Garcia and his esteemed colleagues at the Miami Planning Department, we worked together in a collaborative fashion to formulate and implement a remarkable set of planning documents, laying out the foundation, that vision that led us on this journey as a community, which is now, of course, known as the Neighborhood Revitalization District Plan 1, NRD1 for short. So whenever you hear the word NRD, that's what that is. It was a plan that the community came together, vetted, and we had many meetings about this. And it was a remarkable achievement because now that NRD not only codifies the vision and sets forth, not just for development, but from everything to a simple sign going up on a building, to make sure that the DNA of this neighborhood doesn't get lost as it evolves. And that NRD now has been recognized around the world for being a true catalyst for these industrial neighborhoods, which are not unique to South Florida, and how art and creating a sense of place can bring these communities back to life. We have a responsibility as custodians of this neighborhood to also be very wary of the challenges that lie ahead. That everybody might see eye to eye with this vision, and that's okay, we live in a democracy. But because we live in a democracy, thankfully, where there's consensus and when there's a majority vision, that's a direction that we head in. The members before this board of this organization were responsible for that introduction in 2015, and I think the challenge before this board today is to ensure not only that we continue to chart that course and renew that commitment, but also to speak up when we feel that our partners, whether they're at the city, the county, or elsewhere, need to also step up to continue to ensure that the delicate evolution that this neighborhood is experiencing today doesn't collapse, doesn't implode. Listen, my family's been in this neighborhood for over 50 years. Irving's family, the same way. Jessica's family for several decades now. This is not an overnight success story. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and agonizing over how to get this community back on its feet from a moment in time where, by the way, it was a bustling garment district. And then it came into a screeching halt in the 90s where nobody wanted to lay foot here, not even the police department, with all due respect, because there was no good coming out of this place. And today we have a record number of people, close to 4 million annual visitors, that are coming for our art. They're coming for our innovative businesses, the breweries, the galleries, the independent retailers that call this place home. And of course today, behind you can see an excellent example of the future of the neighborhood. Purpose-built office for a creative and technological new class of entrepreneurs that are coming to this neighborhood. Residential options for those that want to work and live within steps of one another in a neighborhood that is also pedestrian dominant, just like our tourists. Where else in Miami do you see people park their car and walk aimlessly for days or hours in the humidity? This is a very special place because we get people out of their cars and on their feet, right? All these things don't just happen overnight. They don't come from thin air. This organization, the BID, has really been the custodian behind that driver's seat. And I'm proud to say that in many moments throughout our storied history, today's mayor, yesterday's commissioner, when he was a commissioner, has always been an advocate for this organization, and that's why I'm happy that he's here today. But I also know that a lot of you that are here today have serious concerns, which, by the way, I share, and I know many of my colleagues up here do. So I'm going to button up, and I'm going to allow the public, in an organized manner, just raise your hand, and we'll call upon you to say a few words respectfully, constructively, not only to address, this board, but also as an opportunity for our mayor to hear you, to listen, to understand what's going on, because what better way for him as an elected representative to hear directly from you. We of course represent you, but this is the opportunity to speak directly to our mayor. So if there's any, Mr. Mayor, if you want to come closer to us, we can grab a chair. If Chris or Alec, you want to maybe give him your seat and allow the mayor to join us here at the table, that would be very well appreciated. Thank you. And I'm just going to start scanning the room for hands. So, I know some of us have had an opportunity to speak to the mayor previously, but here's an opportunity to do it again in this setting. So with that, I recognize Doug.
Hi, again, I was vocal. I think we met about 6 to 8 weeks ago. It's the largest problem here is to preserve the feeling of the neighborhood. So we're now entitling multifamily developers to build 200, 400, 800 unit apartment buildings, and the more valuable apartments are the ones on the exterior, yet everybody wants to move on the inside. And you know the reason why, correct? The sound. Nobody can go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and be kept up till 4 in the morning with music. And what is the solution to this? I mean, it really is. Somebody spends tens of millions of dollars on a new apartment building. Young people move into that new apartment building. And I don't think anybody here disagrees that they should be able to go to sleep on Sunday night and go to work at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning the next morning. So when a plot of land is entitled on a continuous temporary basis to be an ad hoc nightclub, why would somebody build an apartment building? What is the city's position? Because when I was in our meeting 6 weeks ago, we were going to basically put per deed a limit on the number of events. But then that's per company. I've got 5 cousins. Each of them could have 10 different days. And ultimately, we're 365 days. It just doesn't make sense. So, really the city has to come clean and say, look, there's nothing we can do about this. You guys should take these guys, pay them $1 million a year, $2 million a year that they're making, and get them to move to another neighborhood. Okay, that's one solution because it's essential here. Or state, this is what we're going to do. Okay, and I mean, maybe the city does nothing, and we all have to take our checkbooks out and pay these guys to leave. What's the answer?
So What I don't want to do is create, back and forth just yet, but certainly I want to let everybody speak. I suspect there's going to be a lot of repetition to some degree, so of course, feel free to say the same thing if you feel that you need to say it yourself. I want to acknowledge Daniel Levine from Dasher and Crank.
Hello, my name is Daniel Levine. I'm the owner of Dasher and Crank Ice Cream. First, I want to thank the mayor for coming out today, and the Wynwood BID, police, code enforcement, and many people who are in this room today for everything they've done to help me along the way. So, I've been working in hospitality since I was 13 years old. It happens to be the same age that I received my first ice cream machine. It's always been my dream to own my own food concept. Food and cooking has been my lifelong passion. And 3 years ago, I started on that journey. And it's been one of the most challenging endeavors of my entire life. It took us almost a year to get open, 6 months just to get our building permit, tens of thousands of dollars in impact fees. Also, when we finally opened up, we can open up legally, develop our permits, and create rules. We've been fortunate enough to receive loyal, supportive followers. However, as many people know in this room, that the name of the game is seasonality. So we've got great locals that help us out during the summer, but we really live for the winter season to make enough money to stay open another year. This year, 1 week before our puzzle, a food truck illegally parked 1 block north of us on 2nd Avenue, effectively cutting off a great deal of our foot traffic of tourists. Ice cream is very much an impulse purchase, and tourists don't necessarily know that there's another ice cream shop down the road. And while I'm welcoming towards competition, when we all need to be playing on the same field and not breaking the rule. So I know a decent amount about city code, and I saw this ice cream truck that was parked there pretty apparent that it was in violation of many city codes and laws. So I immediately called code enforcement, had an inspector come out, and nothing happened. And for the next almost 90 days, I called code enforcement over a dozen more times. I alerted the Wynwood BID. I spoke with Commander Kerr and Officer Batiste. Got on emails with the city attorney's office and many other people who were all very supportive and helpful. And fortunately, we were finally able to enforce the law right after school. But what's really concerning to me is how does it take so long for the law to be enforced? It seems I got emails from many people, all in open acknowledgement that this was an illegal operation. They weren't following the code, they didn't have a CU, and so forth. Those 90 days is everything. I'll do more business in 1 day during our Basel than I'll do during an entire week during the summer. So, the difference in the revenue that I lost during that time is the difference between me being able to see in a year or not. Furthermore, I'm also a restaurant consultant. I take one time all the time, advice, trying to help them get open. And, if it takes 90 days to enforce the law, it seems like a pretty good piece of advice to say, like, hey, you want to make a quick buck, open up an illegal operation in Wynwood, park a food truck, and then try to stall and move connections to get the busy season, because all you really want to be open in Wynwood is from our fossil to Super Bowl anyways.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hi, my name is Claudia Gold. I'm a resident of the area. I just moved in fairly recently to Wynwood 25. I love it. It's wonderful. I love living in Wynwood. I have chosen while I live in this area to not have a car. And the main challenge for me on a day-to-day basis is walkability. I've started a new organization called Walkable Wynwood. I would love to see everyone join it. We started a Twitter feed, Walkable Wynwood. We also have a website, walkablewynwood.com. And I'll be posting information there about updates, anything new in the neighborhood related to walkability. The main thing that I believe that we'd like to focus on first is increasing the number of crosswalks on Northwest 2nd. And I would love any help and advice that I can get. This is a new venture for me and something that I don't have a lot of experience in, but I'm really passionate about improving the experience for pedestrians in the neighborhood. So please reach out and please also take into consideration the importance of walkability in the neighborhood as these different improvements are coming into place. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alan.
Alan Drummond, one of the co-founders of Koyo Taco and Wynwood Development. The one thing that I would like to say is I know there's growing concern, and I think it's very important to reiterate what my friends said over here. I want to make a very clear distinction between the businesses that are causing the problems and causing different entertainment issues and the businesses that are spending their money correctly, that are getting all the permits. I don't want to be looped into the same category as other businesses. I believe that we spent a lot of money in making this neighborhood special. I don't think that we want to become just a residential place like all the other neighborhoods. I think what makes this place special is the perfect mix between entertainment, arts, and restaurants, and also residences. And I think we can coexist if the restaurant owners and entertainment owners follow the rules and follow advice. But I ask everyone to please not group all of the entertainment places together, because I believe some of us are doing things the right way and some of us aren't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mayor, for being here. My name is Lalo Durazo. I'm from Bacan Restaurant on 28th and 2nd. We've been in business for about a little over a year, and it's been an amazing experience coming to the neighborhood. We could not be more thankful for the environment that has been created. And my comment to my 5 cents of contribution is that I think we have an amazing community that came out a lot of the circumstances, and that we need to be very careful on what we do with what we have, because what we have is not easy to achieve. I think that it's an example that is going all over the world. Everybody talks about Wynwood. We have people coming from all over the world and taking pictures and taking it all over about our community. And at this point, I think we are in things don't stay the same. And inevitably, things evolve. And that's where we need to stop and say, what do we have that is so precious? And what do we do with it so we can continue to preserve it, improve it, and make it continue to be what it started to be? I don't think it's a process that is going to be as simple as just answering questions. I think it needs a professional expert that can come in and identify that seed that was put into this neighborhood that created what we have, so that as we change things, we respect that seed that created what we have, and we can enhance it. So I think, in my personal opinion, we have the art component, we have the nightclub component, we have the streets and the walking, we have dining, we have restaurants, we have people committed to their crafts that have put their passion and all their heart into it, that are offering something that you don't find anywhere else. And we need to see how we can, and then we have the residential component. So how do we, what do we take out and what do we bring in? It's a process that we need someone that is an expert to come look at it and guide us to this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lalo. In the back, Alan.
Hi, my name is Alan Cadet. Happy to be here. I'm co-founder of the Museum of Graffiti, and my comment or concern is about the changing nature of the art in the neighborhood. I've been visiting and coming to paint in this neighborhood as a muralist since 2004. It's been an incredible thing to witness and to participate in, so much that I wanted to start a business here dedicated to the art form that you see in the streets, the street art, sort of an extension of the Wynwood walls. But now in the past year, I've been noticing that the murals have been taken over by advertising companies and the murals are disappearing. And so for Super Bowl, you would see murals pop up by Stella and other companies where there used to be murals by artists. And so I'm concerned that these big corporations are coming in sort of undercover and taking away the art component that brings people to this neighborhood to begin with, and it'll have a negative impact on the neighborhood altogether. So it's kind of wild where the art and the murals and graffiti seems to be legal, and we want it to be here because the tourists come to see that, but the advertisers come in at night and paint Cheetos ads and things like that, where there used to be really great art. So just something to consider, because I feel like it's going to be very destructive to the neighborhood.
Thank you. David?
So I think we're at the moment that the bid feared most in its formation. So 4 years ago when we started, even before there was an NRD, we had extensive discussions saying, we saw the potential, we saw the support from the city, we saw an interest from the community, really globally, in the arts and cultural events that were starting to take place here. But everybody said, we don't want to be another Washington Avenue. And that was even before there was an NRD. When the NRD passed, which was a great process, where we really talked openly in public and worked through the help of the city professionals about what we would aspire to be, it was all about becoming a cultural destination with a healthy mix of uses, all together developing on the same blocks in harmony with the one-story warehouse scene that we were trying to preserve. And so at the moment we were most elated about the passage of the NRD, I read for the first time the MANA SAP. And I remember those meetings specifically. My question at that moment, which is still the question right now, is I asked the MANA organization, do you want to be a part of Wynwood, or do you want to be something different from Wynwood? And I've been hearing a lot of talk lately about the idea of Wynwood as an entertainment district, and I just have to speak up and say that was never the agenda of the bid that I recall. And I think that's a separate agenda which might have value, might have purpose, but we're seeing today that there isn't great harmony between wide portions of the neighborhood are developing, where that's taking place, and what the ambitions were of the NRD. So specifically, and I think Doug alluded to this, is what you see happening now is that Lennar, Toll Brothers, Amway, Related, these are the 5 of the 10 largest multifamily developers in the country are coming into the neighborhood, but they're coming in on Wynwood terms, meaning they're paying the tax that Howard referred to, our public benefits trust funds, make us the most expensive neighborhood in the city of Miami to develop. They're coming in and submitting to the WPRC, competing with each other for the most interesting projects and uses, and they're doing all of that as far away as they can from properties. And they're actually using that as part of their site selection criteria. So they don't want to be anywhere near where the outdoor fairs are being run and the events. So I think, things haven't turned out as well as we hoped. It is what it is. I think it's a great thing. The city finally got MANA properties back under a TUP, but it's the moment where the community, I think, should ask at a minimum that the city start to really enforce the terms of those TUPs occupied. It's 100% occupied by people who are working there only during the day. They can't sleep there at night. The other projects like Wynwood 25 that are close to where some of the club action is, they also are having problems with things. So we need to enforce those trade-offs that we need to.
Thank you, David. So anyone else would like to say a few words before we turn it back to the board? And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being patient and listening, of course. Of course, yield to the mayor, but I wanted to give an opportunity to any board members who might want to either echo or add to what we've heard from the public so far.
I have two things I'd like to say and to address. Both living here for 10 years now and working and seeing how the neighborhood has changed, but also living in different parts of Miami. I want to go to the noise issue, and I actually still have a place, a rental now in Museum Park. And we couldn't rent it out because of the noise from space and the clubs. And I know they have a 24-hour liquor license, but that doesn't mean they have the ability to make sound for 24 hours and to go above the decibel level. And it's literally, I would wake up at 2 in the morning, tapping my foot to the music, and I could hear it 3 blocks away, and the glass was moving on my building envelope. That's crazy. That shouldn't be happening. Now we're having the same problem here in Wynwood. And the noise level, just because you have a liquor license that goes to 5, doesn't mean you can make noise that exceeds a certain decibel level. They're not the same thing, but everybody likes to say, well, I've got a 24-hour license, or I can stay open until 5. It's not the same thing. And no one's reinforcing that. And when you call the police or you complain, they say, well, there's nothing I can do. But that's not true. And I think we need people, independent groups that are going around testing for sound and finding the people who are exceeding it, regardless of where you are in Miami. So that's an important part. Then, in that, having condominiums that are selling for $500,000 and up, and multiple towers going up, is a far better revenue and tax base and a sense of community than a bar. Why would you let the tail wag your dog? It doesn't make sense. You want to build communities. A bar is just a bar. It could last 5, 10 years. Who cares? These are high-rise towers with work, living, far more profitable for the city and far better to create communities. So I think we really need to make a distinction. Then the second part is pedestrian safety, which is something I've been, really want to see change throughout all of Miami, but we can start changing it here in Wynwood, and then hopefully Midtown too, and then expand it. There is a weird, unusual hostility to pedestrians here. And I've lived in all over the world. I've had the opportunity of living in Europe and the Middle East, living all across the United States because of my career choices, and I've never seen such hostility to the pedestrian. Here at 26th Street and 2nd Avenue, there's one painted crosswalk. There should be 4. At every intersection, there should be 4. And then I also brought up the issue to the police department that they can't stop and write tickets for people who are deliberately speeding up when they see a pedestrian going across because they don't have the technology. My suggestion would be just pull them over, even if you can't write them a ticket, and say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Start changing the vibe here. Start letting people know that you need to respect the pedestrian. That includes any vehicle with two wheels. So if you're on a scooter or you're on a bike, you're stopping for the pedestrian. The pedestrian could be drunk. The pedestrian could be backing up to take an Instagram photo. It doesn't matter. You're going to stop, and you're going to respect that person. And I love Manhattan because they have rules. They have a lot of people who come in every day. They have people who live there, and it works. And we have to start adapting the same rules here. This is not, everything goes in Miami. That's not the way it should work. We should be reinforcing rules, writing tickets. We should be talking to people about, with Uber, is still dropping people off at the intersection. They're too damn lazy to pull over and pull into a parking spot or pull up. So we've got to tell Uber, you can't double park, you can't let people off at intersections. And we also have to write tickets for people who are double parking too, who are going into Zach the Baker because they don't want to pay $2 for a parking space. Well, then you get a ticket. It's that simple. And people will start to notice when they're getting pulled over. People will start to notice when they're getting tickets, and they will change their behavior, just like every urban environment in the United States. So that's my 2 things.
I just wanted to say that I think that bars, restaurants, and entertainment are as important as multifamily. Because there is plenty of land to build in Miami for much cheaper. So why would they build in Wynwood? Just because they want people that buy or rent here, they want to be in this environment. Young people, millennials, that like this environment, they like to play, they like to go out, they like to have fun. So if you decide to live in Wynwood, you're making a choice. You decide that you want to live in an entertainment district where there is actions. Otherwise, you go and you go to some places or you go in other areas where it's more calm and people decide to move there because it's more residential and it's a different vibe. If you come here, it's for this reason.
I have to throw my sentiment in on that also. As a restaurant, bar, lounge owner here in the neighborhood, tourists aren't coming to our neighborhood for residential. I do see the value in having residential here, but it's not what the tour buses are driving through 2nd Avenue for, and hordes of people and being the most Instagrammable place. It's a balancing act between doing it right and doing it wrong. And I think we all can cite businesses that are doing it wrong and hurting the neighborhood, and we can equally cite businesses that are doing it correctly and have gone through all the steps of the city and who are trying to offer a curated and correct product to our community and continue making Wynwood special. So I really think it's a balancing act, and we've seen many neighborhoods here in Miami change over from an interesting space to a kind of a dead residential area, and I would hate to see our beautiful neighborhood turn into that. It's, we just have to do it correctly.
And I also want to add to that, I agree with both of your comments. You know, back in 2015 when we introduced the NRD, that was very much where a lot of the time was spent on that balancing act. We actually loosened up Miami 21 to make it easier to attract food operators like Sven and also the breweries that are here today by making manufactured enabled retail products such as beer, baked goods like Zach the Baker, come into the neighborhood because it does facilitate the creation of the very community that you both just mentioned. So, you know, this is not about shutting down the party or suspending, you know, music or drinking or eating. Actually, that's quite the opposite of what the vision is for this neighborhood. But what I think is really at play here today is that there's maybe one or two bad apples that are really ruining it for everyone. And I want to say the vast majority of the businesses that are not here today that are in the food or beverage space play by the rules every day, have lines around the corner, are doing incredibly well. We've never had more nightclubs, more bars, more restaurants in this neighborhood. And please, if you're looking to open up your bar or your restaurant or your business, you're open for business. Come on in. This is about making sure that everyone is playing by the same rules. So you have folks like, you know, Dan Levine from Dasher and Crank, who is a young entrepreneur, and folks like Sven, who also decided to open up Coyo Taco, their first location in Wynwood. They took a huge gamble and risk. And the obstacles, financial and from a sweat equity standpoint, to open those doors on the first day are stacked against you, not for other reasons that we can get into later about permitting and all those other challenges that I know the mayor is aware of. But in this neighborhood, if somebody can just pull up in a car and open up their truck or open up pull up, you know, food truck and start to just sell overnight, then what incentive do we have for the future 100, you know, Lucky and Coyo Tacos and the Dasher and Cranks and the many other businesses that want to come here? They're going to think twice, and they're not going to be contributing not only to the brick and mortar ecosystem, but they're not going to be hiring year round, contributing to the tax basins for the city and the county. So I just want to put that out there. That's the position of this organization. We obviously can disagree here. That's what you're seeing perhaps happening for the first time in a long time, and that's okay. But before I hand it over to the mayor, there are a lot of other folks that could not make it today that reached out to Manny and myself, and I'd like for Manny to kind of express on their behalf as well some of their concerns, and then we'll let the mayor speak. It'll be a discourse. We'll open it up again to the public. Okay? Go ahead, Manny.
Just real briefly, Mr. Mayor, as you may know, I'm the conduit for the neighborhood, so I'm responsible for reaching out to other neighborhoods, working with Overtown, working with the Wynwood Residential, Roberto Clemente, and all this. I'm also the guy that worked almost 10 years in Coconut Grove, and that board and that group of men in the Grove are literally like the forefathers of entertainment. They created the Grove out of nothing when it was just retail, and created parking waivers, and created all these tools that are being used today to change a neighborhood from one to another. And, you know, seeing the old paperwork and the databases and everything that was given to me by these forefathers of the Grove, and they're still around today. And some of, you know, some of these people in this room were even trained by some of these folks. It's the answers. We have all the answers to stop, you know, the abuse and coexist. In the Grove, there was a point that there were 54 events in Peacock Park. Today there's 2. And why? It started with the abuse of the special events. You have 52 weeks, there was an event every week. The neighbors went nuts. The city of Miami decided to give half of Peacock Park to the back, and that's where you have that residential where Coach Mark Rick lives. Basically, they gave that, and then that began. It was supposed to be a mall, and the Grove lost its traction. Here in Wynwood, you have a BID, a WDRC, that is focused on keeping the trend. So, like examples, the advertising on the murals. It's no coincidence that those are all liquor, and there's no coincidence that those come from a specific sponsor of a specific person in the area. It's no coincidence. Now, for us, the answer is put more teeth on the ordinance, because what happens, you get paid $20,000. I'd rather take the fine and make the net income, but if the city doesn't find ways, like what Danny mentioned, 90 days, that's too long. City should come in a day and plaster the thing. Illegal, something, and at least let's wait 90 days, but let's kill who's making the money on the back end. You know, we have the abuse of the 3 a.m. Our office, you know, God bless Kerr, you know, because he's been the guy. There was a culture here of just craziness. You know, there were, doesn't matter how many officers or what time he delivered stuff. Kerr started as like myself. This is the easiest job in the world. Why? Because there's instructions. No one has that. All I have to do is look at the ordinance. There it is, my instructions to do. If I follow those instructions, I build my Lego playhouse, and I'm happy, right? But what's happening is these city folks aren't honoring these things. How are we giving away permits for special events at 7 a.m., 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m. without myself or someone in this board going to commission and getting that extension? How did that happen? How do we have 72 different types of signatures for one person that is approving all of these on behalf of this police chief? Like, how is this happening? How do we have on record attendance? Like, if I'm looking at an event and I see that there's 50,000 people the year before and something else happens, I'm looking at the city end and I'm saying to myself, oh my, look at Las Vegas. Look what just happened with that maniac shooting from the hotel, $800 million the hotel's liable for. If we have 3,000 people worth of services and there's 50,000, we're lost 47. Where's the ambulances? Where's the police? If there's a shooting in the middle of 50,000, how can 3 officers get to there? Folks, these are explosions. And, you know, I try to look out for the mayor, and I know he means super well. And, you know, this helps him understand what is happening in these departments. But it's a culture thing. This is, when did it become uncool to follow the law? When did it become uncool and be labeled a racist, like what they did to me, to try to sabotage what I've been trying to report and help the city? Guys, this is the answers to keep the cohesion and the ecosystem and everything. It's all here. There's warrants that don't allow you to have noise. This is all created. If we follow it, if they could find those warrants somewhere, guess what? We wouldn't have these. They can't even find them. So, guys, we just have to work with our mayor, our administration, hopefully some new directors, and kind of go back to the days of that I could go on these computers and look at 93, 94, and I have papers and backup, and everything seemed like a machine. And I don't know if it's the turnover of directors and it just happens and we have 7, 8. I mean, Lewis over there at Code, God bless you, bro. You know, we asked Code, guys, well, Miami Beach was genius. You know, if you have an off-duty, change them every week. Because what happens, there's people in here that I know that have witnessed crazy things. Off-duty officers being muscled to businesses. They're not going to say it because they have to work with the city. I don't give a damn. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing the right thing. And guys, how can this, owners being towed, people being parked, it's if you have the connections, you are set. And if we could just follow the rules, make sure that, we have proper coverage, proper police, proper noise, covering, we could live forever. But guys, if we do not get on top of this, the 2 or 3 bad actors, like what happened in the Grove, will be here and they'll take their party at Arpada somewhere else. There has never been one constant. We all know that. We all partied in Lincoln Road, Washington, Ocean Drive, the Grove, Sunset Place. There's not a constant. So what Lalo says that we have to make sure that we could stay like this. This is it, folks, because uncool happens fast. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Manny. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to open up the floor. I know there's a lot there for you to chew on, so
I'll start with uncool happens fast. I totally agree that uncool happens very fast. History of the city of 123 years, I was actually born in the city of Miami. And I've seen a lot of neighborhoods become cool and uncool very fast. Some of the ones we've talked about today. South Beach used to have, I don't know how many clubs in Washington, which are no longer there. Washington's a ghost town. Coconut Grove, once they reduced the alcohol service times from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m., ghost town. and it evolved into a different neighborhood. It now is a much more residential neighborhood, a much more high-end neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood, and I love the neighborhood. I think it's a great place to raise children, but it's a different kind of a neighborhood. I think Lago said very well when he said, you know, and I think Polinsky also, I don't know where David is, if he's still here.
Here.
And I thank you, Albert, because I think you also gave a really good recitation of where we're at, how we got here. You know, you have to understand the history of this neighborhood. This neighborhood was nothing like what we see here today. And it's thanks to the good work of really people like Marlo and the Bowmans, and, you know, who really curated the neighborhood and did it. And interestingly, I was criticized this week because the city adopted legislation that somebody else had proposed. Well, guess what? That's exactly what the NRD was. The NRD was legislation that was proposed by the business community, by the development community, and we adopted it. And one of the interesting things that I remember, because I was commissioner and voted for the NRD, was that it had a name, if you remember. And even the name became controversial. And so the name of the NRD is NRD 1, but it used to be Wynwood NRD. It was proposed as the Wynwood NRD, and there was a big discussion and debate as to where Wynwood began and where Overtown ended, or where Overtown began and where Wynwood ended. And so it became NRD 1, very sexy for a neighborhood like this, right? NRD 1. But listen, I think Manny did make some very good points. The issues of Wynwood are issues that we see throughout the city. Brick and mortar versus a food truck, that's an issue that we see. We've seen, this is not a Wynwood issue. This is an issue that we see throughout the city. We struggle to figure out how to regulate, how to strike the right balance between something that's new and innovative in sort of the food truck phenomenon versus people that pay taxes, that have to pay, you know, setup fees, and have to pay, you know, build outs, et cetera, et cetera. You know, increasing crosswalks, which is something that, you know, is a great thing about Wynwood, that it is incredibly walkable. And wanting to make sure that everything that we do as a community increases walkability and doesn't detract from the walkable nature of Wynwood. The tension, which is a very natural tension as a neighborhood evolves between restaurants and entertainment and residents and commercial, which we had never seen before in Wynwood. We've never seen commercial office space. And I can tell you that there's a tremendous amount of interest, not just from Wynwood developers and from Miami, but from other parts of the country, of people who want to invest and continue to invest in Wynwood. I think what happens sometimes, Wynwood is a little bit of a microcosm of what's happening in the city. If you ask anybody outside of the city, how is the city doing? They're going to tell you phenomenal. They're doing so well. We're doing incredible. We've grown 8.5% my first year as mayor, 10.5% my second year as mayor. We have the lowest tax rate, second lowest tax rate in 55 years, and the lowest homicide rate in over close to 60 years. When you put those macro statistics together, anybody who's looking at that from outside is going to say, the city's doing great. But spend one day in City Hall, and then you're going to ask yourself, how is the city doing? You're going to get a far different response, right? I think a little bit of that is happening in Wynwood. If you look at Wynwood from the outside, as an outsider, everyone says, oh my God, this place is idyllic. I mean, this is like the most incredible place. This is the most incredible place on the planet. You know what I mean? What place has this combination of pedestrian traffic, of night entertainment, of beautiful, you know, unique, cool residences, of great commercial space, which is probably renting at probably the highest per square footage in all of the city, maybe even in Florida. And the answer is there's no place like Wynwood. But I think it is suffering through a little bit of an identity crisis, you know, and I think you alluded to it, Albert. You know, this crisis of what do we want to be, as opposed to what were we, what are we, where are we going? And I think one of the things that we're doing in the city right now is we're doing a revision of Miami 21. And we're doing a revision of Miami 21 because we've been in Miami 21, which was, I think, a very, very good zoning code. It has its pluses and its minuses. But it's time. It's been 10 years that we're in Miami 21. I think it's an opportunity for us to revisit it. Similarly, I think it's an opportunity now, and we had a meeting about a month ago, and I want to thank the BID for really putting together a really copious package of notes on that meeting, because I think it really details exactly what transpired there. And I think I hope everyone would attest that since that meeting, certainly once the mayor got involved and was at the meeting, you've seen a lot of action from our administration on code and a variety of other things that I think were, were brought up at the meeting. By no means do I think things are perfect. We do have a very good commander who has been very proactive. We do have, obviously, an evolving neighborhood with a variety of different challenges. So my commitment, I work for you. I work for you as residents, I work for you as business owners, and my commitment is to do whatever I have to do as mayor to make sure that this incredible neighborhood that we have continues to be special. You know, I said at that meeting that we have to be very, very careful with this neighborhood because it's a very fragile situation, and you never want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And we've seen that happen a lot. We've seen examples of that. Manny alluded to some, Coconut Grove, South Beach, even in the entertainment district, where I remember one time having a discussion with I won't say the person, but with an owner of that establishment they referred to, and I said, dude, you guys have a 24-hour liquor license. Don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had with people in the 2 years that I've been mayor, where I've told them, listen, if you can just get the noise under control, you're going to be able to do just about anything. But the noise is a tremendous, tremendous factor because it is a quality of life issue, right? So, again, I've had many conversations with Adele, who's a phenomenal director, about the 100-foot rule and having an objective standard versus a sort of an audible standard. I'm open on any of those kinds of suggestions. I'm open on legislation. I do recommend that you guys copy me on emails when you send emails. My email address is fsuarez@miamigov.com. My personal cell phone is 305-992-3342. It's the same one that it's been for 10 years as I was commissioner. And Marlo remembers those days when I ran for commissioner and I gave out my cell phone. I still give it now. The only person that's not allowed to call is Al Crespo. No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
No, it's not a joke.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not a joke.
So, but listen, we do have a phenomenal city. This is probably the most funky, unique, diverse neighborhood in this incredible city that we're in. And we do have to protect it, and we do have to make sure that it continues to grow in the way that it should grow. Manny did make a point. The issues that this neighborhood suffers for are issues that we've seen. But I think the bigger question is that we have a lot of competing interests, right? Graffiti versus commercialization. Walking versus, scooters and mopeds and, all the stuff, right? We have commercial and residential versus nightlife. You have the incredibly curated Wynwood walls and sort of this generic art scene that came out of the vision of the Goldmans versus, hyper development. And I think, David, you said it right. We saw this day coming. We saw this day coming, and it was inevitable that even with a good NRD, and I think it's probably a model neighborhood revitalization district for the country, it's impossible to predict everything that's going to happen in the future. It's impossible to see all the things that can happen. So my final comments are that I've taken everything that you have given me under advisement. I took very copious notes as well. I ask you to please email me and keep me in the loop on issues as they arise. I can tell you that I think the board will attest that once we had the meeting at City Hall, things have gotten significantly better, and I will be proactive. We will have a new city manager on Monday, and I think that's a great opportunity for the city to sort of turn the page and be proactive about things like this. We have a great planning director, but I do think at this point we need to look at the NRD and start sort of a phase 2 of the NRD. I really think that based on all the things that I've heard, what I like about the NRD is a plan document, it's a vision document.
It's a living document.
And it's a living document, and it's a collaborative document. And frankly, I would prefer, me as mayor, as your mayor, I would prefer that you guys fight with each other in a collaborative way. Because again, there's a lot of tension here, right? People have different perspectives. And then that you come to me as the business community, which is what bids were intended to be, sort of a more local, hyper-local representation. And you say, Mr. Mayor, we think this is the way to chart forward. it's like politics. Not everybody's going to be happy 100% of the time. That's just not possible, right? But I think through collaboration and through some conflict, you can come together with a set of principles that we can adopt. And I think you've seen a tremendous amount of support from the commission. Certainly when I was there as commissioner, and I don't see why that would change with the current set of commissioners. You know, we want to see Wynwood thrive. This is one of our, if not one of our banner neighborhoods in a banner city. But I guess I'll stay. I will close by saying the following to all of you in the crowd. Sometimes in life, it's good to take a step back and realize how amazing this is. We're arguing about things that everyone has a right to argue about: noise, you know, food trucks versus brick and mortar, graffiti versus commercialization, walking versus everything else. Commercialization versus the funkiness and the coolness of all that is legitimate for debate, discussion, and action. But I think sometimes we forget to pat ourselves on the back. You know what I mean? This is probably one of the most unique and special neighborhoods in the country, if not in the world. And it's because of all of you that has happened. It's because of people who preceded this, like your family, and then those that came and sort of really created, you know, a vision, and then executed on the vision. And then those that came afterwards and said, hey, we've set these rules, now we want to come in and populate the area. So it is an incredible neighborhood for most people who are not in this room. They think everything is working phenomenally while they're living. And so for those who are in this room, obviously that's not the case, because there are, you know, someone once told me that a person's freedom begins where another one ends. Right, so certainly there are a variety of tension points that we've got to address. I'd like to see it done collaboratively, because that makes my, you know, my job a little easier in terms of coming forth with a collaborative planning document that we can present to a commission and say, hey, these are things that need to be modified. NRD 2.0, just like we're going through Miami 21 2.0 or Miami Forever or whatever we want to call it. But I thank you for the opportunity. I will come as often as you want me to come, if you think it's helpful. It's only once a month. So I'd be happy to come and get progress reports from you on how you think things are working. But also, please feel free to call me, please feel free to text me, please feel free to email me, and keep me in the loop on things that are happening. I have to get going, but I've left our planning director and I've left, I think, our code enforcement official here. And I'm willing to bring whoever from the administration that you want me to bring at the next meeting, or have meetings in between the next meeting and this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick things, and I do want to just, if you can give us just 5 more minutes, I promise. You know, because things have evolved since we last met as a board, once a month, as you mentioned. You know, before the end of last year, we had the opportunity to speak to Director Joseph Reeves from the Planning Department, as well as a presentation by the CEO of Swarm, Tony Bello, with regards to their temporary use permit application. This past Friday, I just want to bring the board up to speed if you haven't already heard. The city did renew the TUP application for Swarm at Wynwood. You know, this board was promised at that time that before that TUP would be issued, this board would have an opportunity to again give recommendations to the to the zoning director for consideration. Similar in form like this, I know you were with us then, very constructive dialogue. I will say though that a lot of the conditions that made it onto the TUP, and I circulated copies for the board to look at while we're discussing this issue, did make it on here. That came out of the meeting. So I want to attest to what you said, that after we reached out to you, met with your staff, met with your administration, some of that has obviously come through here. But like everything else, this is just paper, ultimately. It's meaningless if it has no teeth, and it's meaningless if the code enforcement and police doesn't have the support from the very top, because I will say, I'm not speaking for police or for code, that they do get conflicting messages, right? There's the public document that says, you shall not do this, you shall only do this, and then there's other forces at play. I can't speak to them personally, but I would assume it's what's happening when then things kind of fall between the cracks And I think that is really at the root of this tremor, Mr. Mayor. It's not about residential versus nightlife. It's not about commercial versus food and beverage. It's really about just simply, to Manny's point, the answers are right before us. With all due respect, we are amending the NRD, but I don't think we need to tear it up and start all over again. That's not what you're suggesting. It's just simply ensuring that what is here is enforced, because then it gives, I think, a sense of respect for the law, that other law-abiding businesses, which every day abide by the law, understand they're playing by the same set of rules. It's what gives developers calm and a sense of safety to come and continue to invest here, because they know that they won't have apartments sitting empty, because people are trying to move to the other side of the building, not because they don't like the view, it's because the noise isn't being addressed, right? Even though there's an ordinance and there's warrants that speak to that. So I know you're working on it, and I just want to make sure that that's not lost in the details. And I do think there has to be some accountability in special events, Mr. Mayor. There are a lot of concerns and issues that have been raised multiple times in this room, in our meetings with you privately, and other forums. And I think it's not lost on anyone that a disproportionate amount of special events occur in Wynwood. Now, that's not a bad thing if it's done properly and applications are vetted and there's an opportunity for the community to review these applications in due course to express their concerns, so that police and code and fire take those considerations into their approval process and put those conditions at play. But when you can submit a special event application an hour before an event, you kind of deny the public that opportunity. And in a neighborhood such as vibrant as this one is, that's where a lot of the bad actors, I think, are kind of squeaking by. And I think that's really what we're talking about. I would say 95% of this neighborhood is thriving, doing incredibly well thanks to your support. But it's that 5%, Mr. Mayor, that we're worried about and becoming a cancer in this neighborhood.
Yeah, let me just answer a couple of things. So one is, my policy is that the law has to be followed, period. So whatever the law is in a particular set of circumstances, it has to be followed. What does happen is sometimes the law is inadequate to deal with a certain set of facts, or it has not caught up to an evolution of the neighborhood. We've talked about some ordinance changes in our meetings, which we need to accelerate, Francisco, and also a code as well. So please let Adele know. So I think that's, sometimes when a neighborhood grows fast, it's like a new product.
Gotta keep up.
The law has to keep up.
Disrupting ourselves.
The law has to keep up. Then two other things I want to say real quick. One is, we, under my administration, we brought out electronic permitting. That's something that didn't even exist in the city. So now we have the ability to track just about everything that we do. And I think all those who work with the electronic plan system can now attest. Obviously, like everything else, when you start something new, it's a little bumpy at first, but can now attest to the speed, much faster in terms of processing permits than we ever have been in the history of the city. Can we do better? Of course. We have a new department director, and I'm going to be pushing him like I do every day, because my hope is that one day somebody pulls me aside anywhere in public and says, "Hey man, I don't know what you did. Your planning department, your permitting department is amazing. It's the best." That's my dream. Maybe I'm a.
By the way, we asked for that 5 years ago, so we're thrilled and excited about that achievement, by the way.
And and then on code, I asked our director of code to be as aggressive as the law allows, right? Historically, code was not that way. Code was not too different from a police officer doing a traffic ticket, you know what I mean? Or someone getting a parking violation. You get a parking violation, you pay it, you don't pay it. It doesn't ensure compliance. I was a commissioner that led the charge to change the name of the department from code enforcement, giving a ticket to somebody, to code compliance, right? Making sure that they comply with the law. It's a totally different philosophy. To say, we're going to ticket you for doing something wrong, but somebody might say, I don't care, you know what I mean? I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. Versus, we're going to make sure that either A, we educate you so you can comply with the law, or B, we enforce the law to its maximum possible extent. Injunctions, going to court, doing everything that we do, which by the way was never happened before my administration. And so that's something that I thought was important. It's important that we have an attorney who is the code enforcement director, because we have somebody that understands what the law is and how it needs to be enforced to the maximum level. So I just wanted to touch on those issues, because I think those issues are very germane to this neighborhood.
There is work in progress. There's been a lot of advancements. I want to thank you for that. I want to acknowledge that. Just lastly, if there's any last comments, I think Mr. Guspo, you wanted to ask a question.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm the person who wrote the stories, and I'm the person who got the public records request and got the emails. So all of this is very nice and very good, but the issue is, from my perspective, that I have documents that go back well over a year, 2 years. Letters that were addressed to you. Letters that were addressed to you repeatedly by a guy named Fogarty, an attorney, who wrote to you complaining. Letters by David Lombardi, who I featured in my first story about Wynwood last week. And the fact that here was a guy who had invested as much as he had and was as connected as he had and felt he had to write you a letter like he wrote you. And the issue is about governance, in my eyes. The issue is about municipal governance. And you can make all the promises and all the things that you do, but your employees either aren't paying attention to you or don't care what you say, because the special events situation is really kind of astounding. And that fellow who you've got as the director of special events has been there for a long time. And I don't see how you can continue to say, well, we're going to make changes, when all of these people have repeatedly told you and told everybody else that they can tell and jumped up and down about all the things that have been going on, all these permits that have been issued in the ways they've been issued. And the argument now is, well, we're discussing this and we're going to do better. I don't think that flies. I think at some point somebody's got to say, you know what, if you don't do your job, you're gone. You know, because these people all have business people, and if they had employees who were doing the kind of job that your employees are doing, they'd have to fire them. They wouldn't put up with it. But you, and I don't mean you specifically, but you know, city government continues to allow people to remain in office and do jobs that they do and get paid $90,000, $100,000, $150,000 a year, and are producing crap for results. So I think that's a really serious problem. And you know, that young man there, then, you know, the fact that he had to go through, and the other young woman, who I don't even know if she's here, the woman who started the vegan ice cream place. Have you been there?
No, man.
You should go. I mean, when I started walking around to follow up all the complaints and all the information I had collected, I was amazed by the number of places in this community that showed that there were people here who had risked all their money, their vision, their hopes, their dreams, and had actually done some really amazing things. Because I'm from Miami, I remember all this. I was here from the beginning and saw what it is. And I spent a couple of days.
It's very similar to the problem that we had with 900 Biscayne, where we had residents that couldn't basically live, right? We dealt with that problem. I think we're going to deal with this problem, and we are dealing with this problem. There were specific, at the last meeting, there were specific businesses that were, you said, you know, the 5%, which are the bad actors. We have targeted those. We have focused on those because those were where the complaints came from since that meeting. So I kind of disagree with you that, you know, from the minute that I've been involved, our residents has acted, our administration has been acting, and you have seen results. So I kind of disagree with that. As to special events, look, everybody wants to do special events in the city. I mean, that's one of the great things about the city. Whether we limit the number of special events is something that we have the right collectively to do as a government. And that's something that has to be a community conversation. Because I think, again, therein lies the tension of, do you kill the goose that laid the golden egg? You know, how many special events is enough? How many is too many? There are rules that need to be followed, and those rules need to be followed, period. And I know that sometimes some people complain about the rules, whether it's 14 days, some people want it to be more, some people want it to be less, but they're rules and they have to be followed. And so, unfortunately, I tried to change the governance structure of the city of Miami. It didn't succeed, and it would have given me more ability to hold people accountable than what I have currently. But, you know, that is what it is. I respect, you know, the decision that was made by the residents, and I try to work within the structure that I have right now. Thanks, guys.
Mayor, just real quickly, the special events, just so you know, there's already ordinances in place from the 90s. Coconut Grove, you need 120 days to run it, right? And Zurich just decides one day, hey, I'm going to change the ordinance until 14. So you actually have laws that are.
But man, remember that you can't just change an ordinance like that. That's not the way it works.
No, but that's how it happened. So
Okay, but an ordinance gets changed by the commission.
Right, but it was an order, and 14 days does not allow for the public, the mail to arrive. It doesn't. And what happens is, there's not even special event applications for permits. What happened at Dome on Northeast 2nd, the stripper bowl, they got a 5 a.m. on a Monday. Nobody can vote till Monday. I mean, I saw that thing happening 3 months ahead of time because I said, here comes the same play at Dome happened in Patagonia. If you would have stopped Patagonia, the news wouldn't have been about the game, and not when I'm reading the news in Europe and all the talk about stripper bowl. So we literally missed the boat there, and it's the same special event using the permit to dub as a TUP.
But I also want to, again, I think this is where context is important, context matters. You know, that incident was definitely an unfortunate incident, without a doubt, but it didn't overshadow what was, I can't tell you the number of people that talked to me about complimentarily about how the Super Bowl was done in the city of Miami, and how what a great event it was for the city, branding, etc. So, you know, you're never going to have, unfortunately, an event like that without one or two blemishes. Happens. But I do agree that, you know, certainly, I'm open to looking at it. I'm open to looking at the number of days. But by the way, this happens, you know, it happens to us in neighborhoods where somebody complains about speeding, and then you put police officers, and then the very neighbors that complain got a ticket. It happens all the time. And then they're like, oh, why do you have so many police officers here? So that's why I like it to be a consensus community conversation where the community comes and says, listen, in the NRD, we think special events shouldn't be 14 days. We think they should be 20 days, or 25 days, or 30 days. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. You know, there's no reason why. But that also ultimately goes, it's not an administrator, just to be clear, that changes that. Administrator can have a policy, can say, look, we think this should be changed. But ultimately it goes to a political body, elected by, you know, by the people. And they're the ones that either enact it, don't enact it, and then the mayor, in theory, can sign it or veto it, assuming the mayor has veto power, which is another issue.
You've been very gracious with your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Being
Mark.
Okay, so the meeting continues. You do have the TUP in front of you, so this is something that we're going to have to deal with again. So I just want to spend a few moments on this. There was a question from Glenn. Glenn, you want to speak a little louder?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, taking into consideration the feedback that was presented, and I'm reading this, and I'm not staying with the law, but June 29, 2021. So is this essentially a TUP that's been approved to do events on this particular property for 16 months?
That's correct, the way it's written. I can't speak to the ownership's, intentions throughout that period of time. This is a permit that was issued on Friday, so the way it's been drafted here, the way it's been laid out as the letter speaks to it, I encourage everybody to read it. Get you an electronic copy, and anybody who wants it from the public will make copies available as well.
Okay, so I've just realized.
Sets for.
Just realized where it is. So it's obvious what it's about.
Correct.
All right, so it's about swarm activating Northwest.
Second Avenue, and I better remind this board because I know some of us weren't here when we did the MANA SAP agreements and the conversations we had with them at the time. When we did the NRD, there was a big emphasis on Northwest 2nd Avenue, really recognizing it as our cultural corridor, really the spine of the neighborhood. And at the time, there were a lot of concerns, which I think are even more today than they were 5 years ago, about what would happen to the surrounding businesses if the TUPs were not properly conditioned. We have nothing against TUPs. I want to be clear about that. I personally have nothing against TUPs. And I happen to think that SWARM does programs throughout the year that actually add to the cultural fabric of the neighborhood. Amongst them is Wynwood Pride, Wynwood Life. They partner with the BID on other programs. So I don't want to villainize SWARM by any means. I want to make that abundantly clear because I know some of them are here today. and they deserve to do that as well. But on this TUP, there is a reference to this board, because when we did the agreement with NANA and with the city, we were very specific about protecting those first 100 feet from 2nd Avenue, that setback. And that's where I think there's been a bone of contention, in particular with one of these ice cream trucks apparently that's sitting there now, and how the activities along those first 100 feet either are compatible or detrimental to the character of that corridor and the businesses along that corridor. In Miami 21 and in the NRD, you can't have a food truck operating within 500 feet of a property that's designated as T50. Well, newsflash, 80% of this neighborhood is T50, which means there shouldn't be a food truck anywhere in sight along the streets, or on private property for that matter, operating legally here without some sort of TUP or some sort of permit. So there's a lot of issues here that we have to work through, but I think large and all, the feedback that we gave Director Ruiz 3 months ago made it onto here. My only issue is that we didn't get an opportunity or a heads up to speak one more time. I know a lot of you were asking at previous meetings about the sound attenuation plans and other things, but actually, according to this letter, there's no sound attenuation plan because actually there should be no music, no noise coming out of the premises between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. So in essence, you can't have music playing after 11 p.m. unless it's in a fully enclosed building. So that's why my question to the mayor was, is that going to be enforced? And, you know, I think the operator will have to make some adjustments because I don't think there's any fully enclosed structures that are currently a part of that program. Otherwise, they're not going to be in compliance. This past Saturday night, it's my understanding that the operation ceased due to an intervention by the police and code enforcement, because this letter actually states that as of February 15th, which was this past Saturday, all uses on the property had to cease and desist until they come into full compliance with the letter of this TUP. So, you know, we want them to succeed like any other business, and we want them to come into full compliance. I believe that if they do so, they're going to work harmoniously, not just with the businesses, but with the residents and everyone else. I think that's the tension point. I think what got us to this point was the distrust that has kind of fermented over the last 3 years, where there hasn't been a TUP in place and the operator has been operating. And there really hasn't been any rules applied to what they do there, for better or for worse, no matter what the nature of the programs are.
Is this still affecting Wynwood 25?
This,
well, I think what I'm hearing here, the common theme that Manny and you were alluding to is that there's rules, right? It's not like you're just going here and you can just operate however you want, right? Like you go and you get your permit and these are the rules you have to follow, right? And you know, my biggest issue is that I'm having now 15 or 20 residents move from the south side of my building on 24th Street to the north side of 25th. And it's obviously, you know, it's going to be very hard for me to continue to rent those units just because of the noise and the issues that we're having around that. But, you know, I was reading this, I hadn't seen this until today, everything's spelled out here, right? It says, no noise, play outside from the hours between 11 p.m. and 7 p.m. We wouldn't have an issue if the businesses were following that, right? And like you said, I really think there's only a couple of businesses, 99% of the other businesses are doing extremely well and are following the rules, and I think we need to continue to have that so we're going to stay what it is. If not, you know, when the very easily go down and change, and people may not want to live here and be out here. So I think there's a cohesive way for everybody, the businesses, the apartments, the people that work here, the people that live here, all to sort of live and play nicely in the sandbox. And it's all spelled out. And I think until the city, which the mayor is here, but I've already expressed my concerns to him, until the city enforces all this, which it sounds like they're doing now, and they shut down, I guess this is Swell, which is great, it should, right? And unless you guys are going to comply, then you should operate.
Can they get a special event permit to go later?
So that's a very good question. That was one of my concerns, as you recall, when we had Director Ruiz here. So actually, point number 6 in the letter, which is in the back of the first page, it says special events are strictly prohibited at the property. So throughout the period of this TUP, you can't have the TUP and then the special event and double dip and change the TUP plan, because one of the concerns I know that this board had was, well, here's your TUP plan, but if the special event permit is pulled, all of a sudden, this could look radically different and have different hours of operating and all of that. So that's been addressed in the letter.
How would it work previously? They would just pull special events that didn't have
Correct.
all these.
They would have a TUP, and then they would pull a special event, which would then circumvent the very conditions of the TUP and do whatever the special event allowed them to do for that period of time. So if the TUP said operations would cease at 3 a.m., but they got a special event at 5 a.m., special event would trump the TUP. And then they could rearrange, whatever's happening on site, speakers, stages, capacities, etc. So yes, it says you cannot have special events on site. So theoretically, all operations on this site should be governed by this letter. The last sentence of this letter is very important to hear, and I'm going to read it. It says that the terms and conditions of this permit are non-negotiable and must be fully complied with at all times. So this isn't a memorandum of understanding or a takeoff document for discussions to continue. This is actually the permit, and these are the conditions that come with it. There's also points here about capacities, hours of operation, etc. So, I want to acknowledge that the city did react to our feedback, and apparently it made its way onto this. But to your point, JP, the rules are there. Now we got to make sure that they're followed.
Yeah, I mean, if Saturday all of a sudden there's 3,000 people at 12 o'clock in Mr. Blair,
right?
How do they stop that? Or how do they enforce, this document right here? That's going to be the issue.
Correct, and point 24 speaks to that, the last point, which again is just words on paper, but basically it says that this permit can be revoked, their CU can be revoked, their business tax receipt, can be revoked upon a finding of guilt, an admission of guilt, or any alleged violation, that comes out of this. And it specifically says that for any 2 violations within a 6-month period, the permit will automatically be revoked. So I think for the board and for the stakeholders that are concerned, I think that's the key thing to watch out for and to be vigilant. We're not here to be acrimonious. We're not here to have our binoculars on swarm to watch them trip and know what they do, because no one's perfect. But I think generally speaking, if the intentions of the operator are to be a part of the neighborhood, we should help them and embrace them and help them succeed. Like they bring people to this neighborhood, which help our restaurants and help, attract people to live here as well. I want to acknowledge that. It works both ways. But we have to work together. We cannot be going at it like this, because it's not a win-win for anyone, really. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve here. Are there any other questions about the TUP?
No, I don't have a things.
Yeah, go for it.
This is nothing to do.
Bring it on.
Okay, so first of all, on this note, Manny had said that he's receiving threats of racism, and obviously he's the focal point. And I think we should highlight that obviously we need to address that and protect him, because he is literally the backbone and the voice of the women did, and it's kind of disheartening to know that he's getting that feedback directly personally to him. So it's a threat on our life, potentially. I'm kind of mindful and cognizant that we do have to take special care and attention to that matter.
Okay.
So,
can I buy a flat check?
You're going to expense that.
The second thing, in the southeast quadrant of Wynwood, there has been a persistence of homelessness. Last year, we noticed that it had come in waves, that it got up, and a good coordinated efforts to take care of assistance problem on Northwest 2nd Avenue. But I've noticed now that along North Miami Avenue and towards Northwest 2nd, anywhere from 22nd Street south, what's happened is that since last year, when the city of Miami intervened about an issue around 13th Street where there was a lot of homelessness on the bridge, and there was a super strain of hepatitis that they had to deal with. Once that was, I guess, dealt with, they dispersed up to our neighbourhood and up until where the southeast quadrant is, particularly where the Miami Rescue Mission is located. And since then, what has happened is there has been a lot of trash, a lot of confrontation. For example, during our hours while our building was tagged, so we went to clean it. and our staff were threatened. As of last week, 2 ladies walking on foot near our building and looking into our building were approached by homeless people who are, being aggressive and somewhat. In particular, we know that these people, unfortunately, it's a mental health issue, unfortunately, they may be using drugs or somewhat. And I wanted to bring up to the board that there should be some form of intervention where potentially the Overtown CRA can get involved, because what I understand is there's an overlap with 22nd Street South, and they have a budget to deal with the mental health issue and the silent blind. And what I'd like to do is put it forward to this board to somehow have a system or something in place over the next 90 days, not now, but over a particular 90-day period where there can be a program where we can deal with the cleanliness, the STEM, the mental health people, making Commander Kerr's job really a bit easier to police when he is walking the streets, especially with the incident that occurred near Kush, and I'm sure there's other incidences that we're unaware of that's going on in the area. I just wanted to put it out there for everyone's consideration.
So just some background to those in attendance. What happens is that quadrant of Wynwood has 3 different organizations that are overlaid over it. You have the Omni CRA, and you have the Overtown CRA, and of course you have the Wynwood BID. So Glenn and I had a chance to talk, and we talked with the commander. And what happens is the overlying issue here is going to be Pottinger. Pottinger is still in effect. So basically, if you're homeless and you can prove that you don't have a home or that you could sleep somewhere, the sidewalk is your street and the sidewalk is your bathroom. Now, what we were thinking of, Glenn and I, when we were, and the commander talking about this is, hey, let's reach out to our neighbors. You have the Omni CRA and you have the Overtown CRA. Between them both, you have about $50 million. Their main focus is the addressing of slum and blight. And they're the ones that could actually purchase beds to have these folks go to a living facility. Because without taking them off the street, they're just going to move from 13 back to 22 and back and forth. And now there's another hot spot. So the 13th hotspot on 2nd now has moved a little more west. So it's going to continue. So I would recommend it if it was cool with the board and Glenn that we reach out. Maybe we have an interdepartmental or organizational meeting. You could come if you like. You could spearhead it with us. We could give them, we've spoken to them before about this. I know that they had agreed to purchase lights for the area, and then we were working with Public Works to have FPL do it. So this is something that we could, develop a plan with them in tandem with Wynwood Police, Overtown Police, and the CRAs and the BID.
I think it's a good idea, and I also think last year the same issue. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with this, but last year the same issue occurred, and a homeless person got crushed on the street within 2 weeks of me complaining about this issue, and unfortunately that person died. And a sad day in the book of history. But I don't want to see that happening again. Considering the Southeast Quadrant contains the Miami Arts Charter School, it's only going to take one child to walk 1 or 2 blocks before there may be a bad incident or encounter that we don't want to get stained on our reputation.
I have a question. You mentioned and you brought up various points that I want to acknowledge and appreciate you taking the time to bring up. This is definitely going to be something that's going to be an ongoing project and issue for us. There's no perfect solution. I would also add that police should be a part of that discussion, and other departments in the city as well. But I think we should definitely reach out to the Overtown CRA. I think you're right about that. The areas do overlap, and I think they also have resources that we lack as well. So I think it's an opportunity for both organizations to collaborate. So yeah. Before we go back to our agenda,
That's where I want to go back. I want to go back to the agenda. Specifically, there's 2 things. Items number 7, 12, and 18 are clearly being violated.
TV talking about.
Correct. And then occasionally 19 and 20.
Okay, so just remember, this was issued on Friday and takes effect officially February 15th. As of right now, the operations have ceased. So whatever happened prior to Friday has happened. It already is what it is. Maybe it's a roadmap to things to be concerned about moving forward. I don't want to put Swarm on trial here today, because first of all, they're not here to defend themselves.
I agree.
But I also want to move forward beyond this topic, but I want to be fair to your time as well. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. But I think there's something important that needs to be addressed. And I believe in laissez-faire. I believe that people have the right to make a profit, be innovative. I also believe in antitrust laws and monopolies. We have laws here to encourage neighborhoods. I believe in diversity. There's more than enough data that says diversity of the neighborhood makes a thriving metropolitan area. It's not an entertainment district. It's not just residential. There's literally decades of information on that. So the question goes back to, and this is a hypothetical question now. As a board, because this is an issue, I've been hearing about this since I moved the business here. So this is a perennial problem, and we kind of seem to be dancing around it. And this is my first time on the board, so forgive me, because I don't know all the issues that you guys are trying to tackle and address. But this is constantly been going on. And this is a huge problem for developers who are really bringing in the money, right? The money that we need in order to implement things like landscaping elements, like pedestrian safety. And it's not Swarm. It isn't. So as a group, I think we need to, encourage laissez-faire, but also at the same time, this is a hypothetical question. Someone on the board and it's new, how do we get rid of them? Okay. I really would like to ask that question. Sure. How do we get rid of a Swarm?
Okay. I don't think it's
You can't.
It should be the policy of this organization.
No, I'm saying, I'd like my question to be answered.
Any business
How would you, if somebody's clearly violating something, again and again and again, and doing it in wrong, how would we legally, get rid of it?
David, I think that goes back to point number 24 of the letter, right? So, yes, we've been dealing with this issue for several years. Many years. But in my time, 7 years going on this board, this is the first time we've gotten to this level of a actual set of conditions, whereas before they did not exist. You couldn't even find a TUP to begin with originally. So we're making progress there. I'm giving a pass to the city or to the operator, but I'm just giving you a historical context. So moving forward to answer your question is just being vigilant. Having these forums, the mayor said he'd come back. We have been having dialogue, better dialogue than I think we've had in the last 7 years, particularly with this issue, in the last probably 30 days or so. And I suspect if the trend continues, that we will work this through. But this organization was created, make no mistake about it, to vet these concerns and to the mayor's point, hash it out intellectually, collaboratively if possible, constructively, and then put forth what the recommendations should be. This will not be the first and last TUP that will be a thorn on the side of this community. I guarantee that. So this is just an opportunity for us now to recalibrate, make sure this is not the direction we want to go in. To the mayor's question, open-ended question, I suspect the answer is going to be no. And ensure that we don't fall into that sand trap again. That's it. We have code enforcement coming to our meetings now, which we never had before. They came to our meeting at the retreat. Prior to that retreat, they never used to come to this meeting, for better or for worse. Police is a regular presence now at all of our meetings. They have been for the last year and a half, but before that, they weren't either. So, building community is a very difficult and messy job. Congratulations, you signed up to be a part of that process.
I'm happy, yeah.
And I'm happy that we're all here together in this journey. But we have to all be, citizens of our own backyards, and we have to be fair as well in calling out things that we see them, because no one's perfect. Of course, we can open up our back door and there's going to be things there that we don't want people to sniff at,
But I
hear you. I appreciate
one more thing,
that.
just let me finish one more thing. I know, but I want to say one more thing. If I had a building that I could rent out half of, and I dropped $24 million just for a lot of land, I would be really upset. 100%. If I was David and I had a work-live situation, but nobody wants to live there, I'd be really upset. So my question is, could we theoretically, as a board, because we have allocation of funds, hire an independent company that goes around, because the city seems overwhelmed with code enforcement, and we monitor sound. And we say, hey, guess what? We've got violations, and here's the data.
Your answer is yes.
Yeah.
But.
With lots of nods.
Now that could lead to basically someone saying, or if someone gets hit 10 times, oh, the bids, Manny, that's Manny's cousin working for that company, and now he's gonna. So I think with Lewis and the change with Adele, we've never had this type of responsiveness.
Adele seemed wonderful, everyone seemed great, that, you know, really.
Lewis is back there, I don't know, Lou, you wanna?
Just one thing, I know in the past, there was a beat inspector assigned to Wynwood. So, I don't know, maybe that's something you want to explore.
But a city guy, right, not independent, right.
Which is, I think, more to a point, I think, issues of.
Like an off-duty,
right, that's what you would want. Which, I mean, we have one inspector that covers the area where the bid is at, the large area. He's pretty active there, many of you have had some run-ins with him. If there was someone specifically just in the bid area, I think that would,
I mean, we asked the city attorney if we could fund such a position. They said we could, but then that conversation led to Adele coming in, you know, and putting in the budget to then have code enforcement coming on the weekends and at night, which before they didn't. So all these things are on the table. You know, I want to, in the interest of time, move forward, but make no mistake about it. This will be a recurring topic moving forward, and I appreciate that everybody here is engaged on this issue. We have to be, not just when we meet here monthly, but the other 29 days in between. And Manny's obviously the constant conduit. I do want to mention one last thing about communication between the board and all of that. We are governed by sunshine. So please, when you get an email from Manny, do not reply to all. Manny will also be BCCing us so that we don't accidentally, you know, hit the reply to all. I know it's innocent. There haven't been any issues, but I didn't want to introduce any issues into where none exist. So your communications have to be with our executive director directly in between these meetings. If you have something that you want to share, like an article or a prospective, you know, vendor or something like that that you want the board to see, again, Manny's your vessel for that. We speak to one another outside of these meetings about all the topics under the sun, except for things that are before us or pending to come before us. Is that very clear? I know we heard this already, but I just want to repeat it because, like we scrutinize, others can scrutinize us. So let's keep our house in order. With that in mind, I want to move back to our agenda. Commander Kerr is sitting in the back, and I want to call him up for our security update. There's been a lot of things happening over the last couple of weeks. Go ahead.
Yes, we've been very busy. First, before we get into the noise stuff and things like that, the last couple of weeks we've had violent crime in an area that we've never really had it, and it's been very, very violent crime. I'm going to address it right away. All three of the cases I'm going to talk about are active open investigations, so I can't really get into specifics of where they're at. But right after the Super Bowl, maybe people don't know, there was a murder on one place just south of 23rd Street, which was a roadside robbery that ended up with the victim of that robbery dying. We had the murder at Cush, Mining 20. About a week later, that case has had an arrest. It's still an active and ongoing investigation, and it's fairly complex, but we don't think that there's any, there's no threat to the safety of the community based on that case. And there was a third shooting where it was a roadside robbery where the victim was also shot in the same general area a week ago. We believe it is the same offender from the one of the murder. That's about as specific as I'm going to get on it. There's been significant developments in the case last night and currently as we speak, so hopefully we have good news. But from a guy that spent a long time in criminal investigations, I understand that you don't really want to jump ahead of anything. We want to make sure they have it all set. So it is a homicide investigation. Now, how do we express that to the community? We never want to ever have the opinion that we're trying to, hide something or cover it up. We're very, very open in what happens. I like talking about it. I still think we have a very, very safe community. What I would love to come here today is come here to say that we are, of the 13 net areas in the city of Miami, which is, Overtown, downtown, Upper East Side, we are leading the city in crime reduction. We have the #1 reduction in crime in Wynwood, which is such a phenomenal thing because my entire tenure here, I've been #1 the other way, going up. And it's just really, a lot of it is just the volume of people coming in. So for us to turn that corner, we turned that corner probably sometime around October of last year. We've had this just steady vector down. It's really a phenomenal accomplishment of the officers that are out there working every day. So really the concept, which was hard to get the chiefs to agree with, was having the cops rolling around on bikes, and whenever we have a special event, I want 30 cops riding around on bikes in circles. And they say, well, how many arrests did they make? That's not really what we're trying to look for here. It's worked. Now, I always like to come in and say our crime was going up, but we didn't have the violent crime. We still don't have the violent crime. We had 3 very, very bad incidents that have been our obsession pretty much since Super Bowl. It's kind of consumed all of my time, so I apologize if I didn't return any emails. We've kind of been eating and sleeping these few cases. I do have confidence that they're going to get solved. I don't think it's a dangerous neighborhood. We definitely need to be vigilant. It's just like you live in Miami, you know, if you're walking your car at 3:30 in the morning and you may or may not be on a different level of inebriation, you know, paying attention to each other, watching out for our customers, watching out for our friends, it's a valuable thing. They are one-offs. We do not have a scourge of crime wave going on out there. That's pretty much my public relations spin on it. If I could solve it, it'd be great, because then I could put something out saying, hey, we solved that crime. The incident that happened on Cush was obviously a high media instance because of the time of day, where it happened, and the scope of the perimeter. It was just a really weird spot. The offender ran north along the track, so we basically had to rope off that whole area. It's just a difficult block to set a perimeter on. He got away. He was apprehended in Ohio. This is all public record, so we can talk about it. He was arrested for the felony murder. It's kind of a unique scenario in Florida where if you're engaged in a forcible felony and somebody dies as a result, you can be charged with that felony even if you weren't the one that initially did the act. There are still some individuals that the state is considering charging, so we're not going to go into the specific case, but again, I don't think there's any further threat of violence from that. We got through Super Bowl. I thought it was awesome. The rain was a disaster, but nobody got hurt. Everybody was happy, and I thought it went off without a hitch. We are in preparations for Miami Music Week already starting now. I'm looking for the same mode. We don't really have an opinion whether 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. I don't care either way. Just let me know as soon as you can so that I can start staffing it. Remember, whatever time limit we have, we usually go about an hour after with the bulk of the officers, and then of course we keep this 24-hour thing. Obviously, the TUP's been heavily discussed. We shut them down Saturday night. They were in operation in violation of TUP. We shut them down. I'm comfortable shutting them down, and I think the enforcement method there would be operating business without a license, the county ordinance. It's an arrestable offense. You cannot just set up a Chinese restaurant on a corner and say, I'm a Chinese restaurant. You have to have a license to do it. That is an arrestable offense. It's not a code issue, in my opinion. And that opinion hasn't been, I haven't been told my opinion is wrong yet. I still might. I believe we have that stance. I think that TUP is well written. I disagreed with the issuance of it, and I put that in writing. It was still issued. The issuance of it actually has kind of helped us now. There will be no special events on that venue. That does not apply to behind the parking lot. So you can still have a special event in the rear. You could not have a special event where those folios are, which is those first 5 or 6 folios. The noise issues will still continue because I don't think the noise issues were 100% this venue. It was part of it, but certainly 24th Street has its challenges with the noise issues. And I think we can solve that like we've solved this as far as restoring the peace. I've experienced the Coconut River my whole life. I was a Grove rat also like Manny, but I didn't know him and hang out with him. It wasn't cool. But we can fix the noise problems without destroying the neighborhood. It's kind of the adage to it. You know, we don't want to destroy the neighborhood. We don't destroy what's going on here. I don't think that's going to happen. Everybody has a right to peace and quiet, and you should not have to tolerate any amount of noise, whether you knew that when you moved in there. I don't like the argument of you knew that coming in here. Everybody has a right to peace and quiet, and the law is fairly clear, and I think it's clear and enforceable, and it should be enforced. And it's kind of been the fight we've been going at since I've got here. The officers do want to enforce those laws, and we're kind of black and white. Is it legal or not? I think it's pretty clear. Certainly, I think that TUP is very clear.
Thank you very much, Commander. Any questions for Commander Kirk?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
You say you have your opinions usually right. Tell me if it's the truth of what you can say about hearing some rumors that you're being admonished for giving your opinions and you're doing your job. We really appreciate the job you've done.
Thank you.
No commander has been as excellent, and I think neighborhood, we'd like to see you stay, but I hear rumors that you might be, because you're outspoken or giving your opinion, and you're supposed to just be relaxation after opinions code, you're being maybe removed from this neighborhood. Is there any truth there? Can you talk about it? I'm not asking you to put you on the spot.
The city attorney said, and we had a meeting with the zoning director, and I said, this is my opinion on this interpretation of the law. He said, well, I'm the one who gets paid to give legal opinions, and he's right, because I'm not my JD yet. But I'm prepared to defend the probable cause associated with some of these things. If I say it's a criminal offense, I'm going to make sure I have the probable cause in place before I make an arrest on that criminal offense, or one of my officers do. So we discuss it at length. I'm prepared to make some of those arrests, and let a judge or a jury determine whether we have probable cause for that arrest, and we can discuss it with the state and all that. I don't get influenced by the politics or the threats or the behind the scenes stuff, and there's a ton of that. I've never experienced more of it than when I was at Wynwood. It's kind of institutionalized here. It doesn't affect me at all. Sometimes it affects my officers, and they worry, oh, we're going to get in trouble for this. So my job is to really insulate the officer from the politics, and I eat it for breakfast. I love it. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm a civil service rank captain. I'm the senior captain in the city of Miami, and I'm in the drop. So I'm not saying I'm being flippant about my position, but I have no fear of political repercussions. And I like the mayor very much. I like the chief of police very much. In a year, they could both be gone, and we'll go through another transition. So I'm prepared for it. Will I stay here forever? Definitely not. It's just a matter of time. Eventually, I'm going to step on a landmine that I can't absorb. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is, and what every single officer that works for me is going to do is, follow the law, regardless of who it is, and constantly. Which means at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to come out and enforce that law. So I pride myself that I have a complaint from, the homeless water guy in IA currently pending that says I'm picking on him. And I have a complaint from probably the biggest developer in the city of Miami saying I'm picking on him. And I'd love to go in and say, which one are we going to do today? I mean, I'm picking on everybody, apparently. It's because we enforce it evenly and across the board. And some on the board probably know, if you call me in the middle of the night and say there's something going on, I'm going to enforce it exactly what the law says. Whether I like you or not is not really relevant to me. So we'll keep chugging along, right? I think we've done, if you look at how far we've come, and to go off what the mayor was saying, how far we've come, and what we've succeeded in doing out here, they all freaked out about the Super Bowl, and I could have done the Super Bowl with a day of planning, because you compare Super Bowl to Basel, and it was nothing, it was apples and oranges, The fact that we can bring 150,000 people in here, and we can have zero crime during those massive events, Halloween, Super Bowl. Winter music is going to dwarf Super Bowl as far as I'm concerned in Wynwood in the downtown area, and we like it. So there is no the police don't want these special event stuff. I like big crowds. I like big noise. I like to work all night long because that's what we are. That's why people come here. Right? Real fast on the mural thing. So I stopped the Cheeto mural. I don't like the Cheeto mural, I don't like the beer murals, and I don't want to ever get in the situation where I'm going to pick, oh, that's a mural and what's not. So what they're doing now is they're painting it all the way up to the actual ad. And we can tell. I can tell because I know a lot of the mural artists, sometimes they tell me, that's a commercial one. To me, it's offensive to the neighborhood. To stick up a liquor ad on 2nd Avenue is offensive to the neighborhood, and who's ever doing it should not be a code thing. My opinion of it is, just like we have the graffiti busters that can come and paint it white, I'll paint it white that day. I'm ready to do it. So I think that's maybe something we can look at as, just like the city can come and paint your graffiti and then charge you for the cost of that paint, I'll paint it. I'll pay for the paint. Because to have, not knocking beer, I love beer very much, but to have a beer ad next to what is considered a culturally impactful mural drags that mural down. And then what happens is, once you have one up there, the guy across the street wants to make one, and then another one wants to make them, and they kind of beget each other. So you've got to stop it now. There's 3 sitting there right now. We got the Cheeto one repainted that day. The Cheeto one's actually very good, man. The Cheetos were perfectly painted. There was texture and everything. I told the guys, you guys are great. You can have a Cheeto out on the side across the street.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all you guys' work.
Okay, so just moving on the agenda really quickly. In the interest of time, I'm going to make a motion to table most of the items on the agenda, but I do want to get just through two quick things before we do that. You know, we did have the Super Bowl, obviously, a couple weeks ago, and I, want to acknowledge the efforts of, Kelly and Taylor and Kivit and Chris, our marketing committee, Glenn, as well as Sven, and Ryzen and I here today that handled our social media. We did a phenomenal job and really put Wynwood on the international stage in a variety of ways. Golden Property had a ton of activations throughout the city. But I think the summary of our efforts in raising the awareness of Wynwood and capitalizing on this international event is best summarized by the following 90-second video snippet. This is on game day on Sunday Super Bowl in the afternoon on Fox Network and carried across the NFL Network and feeds around the world. And everybody saw this right before the game. So Chris, if you just hit play and watch this.
Super Bowl 54 pregame show is sponsored by Pizza, official sponsor of the NFL.
We celebrate in the city of sunshine, creativity and colors which enlighten, surprise, energize. Miami's urban Wynwood district, embracing rainbows of originality. Warehouses once but concrete and brick transformed into enormous canvases. Imagine endless Super Bowl fields, loved and brought to life by this vibrant city's acclaimed and emerging artists. The Wynwood District, inspiring the largest display of street art the world over, and this week in the company of the pro football world in South Florida.
Well, you can see artwork all over South Florida, and as you heard in the Wynwood District, in particular. But they also added a little mural this week in honor of the passing of Kobe Bryant, him taking on another Miami icon there, and Dwayne Wade in basketball. And you know what, really, it's throughout the country. We're all still in shock about the sudden death of Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, and 7 other souls lost in that tragic helicopter crash 1 week ago today. It's still hard to believe that Kobe is gone, but his inspiration carries on. Good afternoon, Richard.
All right, so I mean that's a can't pay for that commercial run on the highest rated day of the year on television. So we're very proud of that. I think the neighborhood should be very proud. We had 0 incidents largely throughout that period. And again, Wynwood was elevated by many people throughout that week. And I just want to acknowledge David's support throughout all the coverage that we had that week. Quickly as well, Miami, the website, WynwoodMiami.com, is actually going to be live next month. We have a refresh that's coming online, so there's going to be an announcement at our next board meeting about that. The committee has been hard at work at that, so stay tuned on that. Marlo wanted to say a quick few words about the South Beach Food and Wine Festival.
Yeah, I mean, probably when the room was full, it would have been a bit more appropriate, but we do have a big festival coming to Greater Miami this weekend, which is something that we should all be very proud, and we are going to have a lot of foodies and a lot of people that are going to be visiting our neighborhood, even though there aren't that many events taking place in Wynwood. So I just wanted the restaurateurs and the food and beverage establishments and the clubs to be on their very best, because you've got a lot of people in town that are going to be experiencing our neighborhood. And I think it's a great crowd. I've watched this evolve over the years, and it's pretty spectacular. And Southern Wine and Spirits, Lee Schrager and his whole group, they are now Wynwood. They're here in Wynwood. I was at Lee's office last week. They're going to become members of the BID, and so they are now part of our family. So just, I think it's important to note that it is an important weekend coming up.
Don't you think that one year when soon Basel will bring it all over the town from Wynwood? I think we should have a Wynwood version of South Beach, like Third Avenue, if you ever finish the winter, that could be like.
Sure,
Food.
absolutely. We program, absolutely.
Bring it here, it's the same.
100%.
I think it'd be great.
There's already a few events that are coming over here from Food and Wine Festival that have collaborations with folks.
But it was a phenomenal opportunity that the city had, that this community had, to really showcase our efforts in the lens of resilience. I know that we talk a lot about, well, this particular project and how it's going to continue to proliferate pedestrian mobility and bicycle mobility, and improving our streetscape significantly. But we don't always talk about some of the impacts that it's going to have from a climate impact and resilience perspective. And that's what this was all about, is this particular project implemented in the city, in Wynwood, being able to reduce heat island impact, reduce flood mitigation on surrounding properties, and also impacts to our stormwater management system. So that was really exciting to have that acknowledged at a global scale.
David, could you just mention quickly some of the other countries and cities
Right.
that we ranked above?
Right, so, great point. So there were 5 cities that were selected as finalists. We were the only U.S. city. Ireland, there was Brazil, as well as Malaysia, who was the winner, and then Somalia, I believe, was the other city. So a lot of really great ideas, really great things that these cities are doing for their community in the face of climate impact. So it was exciting to be a part of them. There were 65 applicants, city applicants. There was also a citizen application on what citizens are doing in their community to improve the system that they're in. But it was really great to be there for Miami and for U.S.
Cool. So just David, quickly, if you can give us a streetscape master plan update, where we're at, big picture with the process.
Yep. So really great to hear some concerns, questions about our walkability that we have for this neighborhood and improving that. Yes, that is very, very critical for this neighborhood's growth. And we've been involved with a master plan for our streetscapes for almost 2 years now. So we've gotten it ready, packaged up. There's some things that we're looking at from a maintenance and longevity perspective. How does this community develop it, implement it, and then continue to maintain it. So we're pulling some case studies at this group that the BID can take a look at to see what's been done in Mattis, what's been done in the Gables with Geralda and Miracle Mile. Also what we're looking at with Flagler Street improvements, so that this group really understands what we're getting ourselves into. But I think we all know that long-term wise, it's the right thing to do, going in that direction. But what we're looking at is a PZAB date of April 15th, which is right around the corner. So I think all of these members here today have had an opportunity to give their input, feedback, as well as community on it. So we're really happy with it, where it's at. We're ready to move it. But it will be brought back before this board for its final blessing next month.
And when should we expect to have the final draft of the amendments and the overall set so we can review it in time?
Hopefully within the next week.
Okay.
So it'll happen.
Okay, so what we'll do, JP and David, is reconvene our capital and regulatory committee, like we did last time with David. We'll review it again, and then we'll make a recommendation to the board at that time, whether or not we want to proceed with the plan, which I assume we will. And there's been some new things that came out of that committee meeting that are going to be introduced that we haven't reviewed at all. So we're looking forward to getting those revised sets as soon as you have them.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put a Cliff Note version together with those modifications in our, because it's a very large one.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the April 15th PZAB is going to cover, what is going to be the actual application from what?
This will be the NRD amendment to adopt the Wynwood Streetscape Master Plan.
And within that Wynwood Streetscape Master Plan, the Third Avenue Winter is part of it.
It's referenced in it, but the One Earth, the Third Ave One Earth was more of a schematic design process. So in regards to that effort, we are at 100% schematic design. I think this group has all seen that design, and now we're looking at a implementation strategy. So looking at design development, construction drawings, and going into actual construction. So we're right now working with capital improvements on funding strategies for the project, what different pots of money might be available out there that we can use.
And you mentioned as well that you could have the director from capital perhaps come speak to the board or the committee.
Yes.
When the time is right to go through those various strategies.
Yes, we're planning on that presentation for next month as well.
Right. I mean, I just bring it up, just knowing that there's another winner that does have some private developer capital involved, which is not to say that, those that may be involved in Third Avenue would not be open to it. I just want to make sure that, that the door doesn't close if all of a sudden the city just can't find any money to do the project.
Right.
So, that's a concern that many of us have, many of the stakeholders have on Third Avenue.
Correct, and yeah, and we, like any project we have in the city, strategizing, exactly how we're going to make it happen is critical. Looking at all the various options, whether there's money from the county, the city, stakeholders, looking at all of those things to make it happen is what we're doing.
Any questions for David?
Regarding 29th Street, I wanted to know when this is going to be implemented.
So can you speak about the road diet
Right.
and how that's going to be brought into the streetscape, and then the dollars that were pre-allocated to that?
Yes. Yes. So, so part of the streetscape master plan was incorporating the road diet for 29th Street. That particular project is funded by the city through our capital improvements division. We are right now going through the traffic study to make that happen with the counties. The county's reviewing that right now. We've not gotten anything back for them yet, but the consultant feels very confident that it will move forward.
And we provided the planning department our comments on the road diet with a concern regarding the potential opening of an exit on I-95 and how to be able to have a flexible plan so that we don't, shackle ourselves ahead of, what may come later or may not.
Right, yeah, and we do feel comfortable that the plan that's put forth, will allow for future modifications of transportation needs for the neighborhood. But yeah, right now we're really just waiting on the county to complete their review, and then we'll be moving forward with that.
And after that happens, what's the timeline? We should be looking at expected timeline as far as.
That's a good
It's been
question.
funded, so really what would be the obstacles that lie ahead?
Let me get back to you on that question with Capital Sphere, because they'll be able to iron out a little bit better picture of the timeline with that.
Okay.
So,
Anything we can do to help
Yeah.
accelerate that, certainly we want to be able to partner in that process.
Absolutely.
And one other thing that I probably made a mistake because I put it wrong copy, but was because we talked about walkability, and I think that this neighborhood in the summer has less people walking around because obviously it's too hot. So I've seen other solutions in other cities. One come out of my mind is Granada. That they have like some sort of shutter, I don't know how to call it, canopy, like awning, that goes from one side to the other in the street. And even if it's like 50 degrees hot in the heat, you can still walk, enjoy, strolling around, and it's good for the business, good for the neighborhood, and it doesn't make the experience so bad. So I was thinking that this would be a very inexpensive solution, and also it can be art of the art of Wynwood, because we can invite, let's say, local artists to use those pieces of awnings as canvas, and then we can express art to this type of awnings. And I think I saw this solution is very efficient. People that were walking in the street with no problem in the middle of the summer in August, in Granada or like cities of south of Spain. and it's easy to remove in case of hurricane, and it makes the streets even like nicer. So it's for you as well. Like when you go around, you can see more. But artists that make these things like different from other part of the world.
There was an article in the Washington Post that profiled this unorthodox, very low-tech solution that Granada implemented before that article to you, so you can take a look at it. I mean, you know, just to, not to answer on David's behalf, but certainly on Third Avenue Earth and on First Avenue Earth, you know, one of the things that we did explore was the idea of using some sort of canopy, some sort of art canopy along Third Avenue, kind of at a gateway moment to kind of accentuate we're arriving into something special, meaning Third Avenue Earth in particular. So certainly there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that. But I think, right. So I think what you're hearing here, David, as well is, you know, you also want to think of low-tech solutions that can be implemented sooner rather than later, that perhaps have a lower entry, you know, cost basis for us to be able to start implementing solutions rather than waiting for the big chunk of money to come whenever they come to implement those larger gestures that are contemplated in the streetscape plan.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think both the streetscape master plan and the NRD itself has the flexibilities to allow for those type of movements and opportunities for shade and other type of systems like that. So you can definitely explore those.
All right, we're going to be wrapping up shortly. Any last comments, questions before we adjourn for the day? Mr. Crespo.
Yeah, when you all were talking about homeless, the solutions you're talking about now are Band-Aids to the problem. There's a consistent, persistent problem of chronic homelessness in the city of Miami, as there is in other cities around the United States. Beyond and beside the Omni CRA and that money, you all need to understand that the Miami the Homeless Trust has in excess of $50 million that they collect every year from food and beverage tax. And they have a philosophy that is predicated on putting homeless people into permanent homes or apartments, which is great for a segment of the homeless population. But there are other segments of the homeless population that continue to be ignored, continue to be abused, continue to be used as pawns in this game of, you know, what do we do with the homeless? I've written about it in the past. I posted a video on Monday of this week about what continues to be the problem on 13th Street and 14th Street and First Avenue. So this is a problem I think eventually everybody's got to buy into and deal with. And so while you're looking at that problem, don't ignore the bigger problem, which is why does